Okay, so today's topic is something that I wanted to touch on for a while. It's bringing focus to peer to peer and the importance of it that it has on the social connections we are forming. Now, as we're more getting into a decentralized age, we are finding solutions just like peer to peer connections that allow us to become our own maintenance, our own authority to choose and say what we decide to do. Now, for those who do not understand what peer-to-peer connections are, it's an individual who's willing to offer something and another individual willing to receive it. Now, there is no external authoritative body that is saying you can and can't do this. This is merely an agreement between two individuals. It's like a farmer being able to be here and a person coming by to purchase what they've grown. And they say, like, here, I'm going to have it for this price. That is not dictated by any market, by any external source or authority, by any body that is associated with more of a collective scale. This is this person deciding to say, here's this for this much, and the other person receiving it. Now, that's it applied in the markets. Now, many might not be aware of it, but peer-to-peer has been around just as long as the internet. And the internet's been around probably since the 60s due to the research that's done on it, and the 90s allowing it to be more of a public ideology in terms of people connecting and creating their own networks. But one way since the network has existed and the internet has come about on a more public scale is we've seen this in file sharing. In particular, a torrent is a number one example in which somebody can have a file connect and share with another person and they can receive it. As you're uploading the file, they're downloading it. There is no uploading it to a server. There's no connecting it to a cloud for that person to receive it. It's merely myself to you in case if it was going to occur. Now, this is essential when looking into cryptocurrencies and blockchain technology, as these solutions are coming into place to phase away what can be seen as governmental systems, authoritative states which are trying to have a centralized point of view in terms of allowing you to do this or that. There is no say, it's you. For example, how cryptocurrencies can allow you to become your own bank. You have a say on what you're doing with your currencies. It does not exist in a system that is more widely connected. It does not apply by the rules outside of what it is created to do in your centralized manner. This is more of a decentralized point of view. If you are your own bank and you have your own currency, you're able to give that to another person free will of choice and they can receive it. And at that, there is nothing or anyone else, not a bank or any authority or government that can tell you otherwise on how that can be done. So peer-to-peer is very important. There is a peer-to-peer internet in terms of being able to connect LAN, and this is more of a localized network. We've not yet reached a stage where we're able to apply an intranet peer-to-peer that is purely an internet connectivity that is from one person to another. Now, the more people you're connecting on this peer-to-peer, the more you can have a better connection. For example, if I have one file and 5 other people have the same file, this one person who's receiving the file will connect to all 3 and gain pieces from all of it. So the stronger the peer-to-peer network becomes, the easier it is to build a connection, to build speed, and to allow for a fluid exchange in terms of what you're working with. This also can be associated towards the crypto markets. As the markets itself become more connected and the people are exchanging and allowing for transactions to occur, one can very well see this exact practice taking place through their own choice to actually give or take. Now, these kind of systems are something that are fundamental to what we're perceiving out there, like going to a store and exchanging currency for someone else. And you purchased your item, you received your item, and that item is now yours. So this term of exchange can essentially carry the same principles of a peer-to-peer exchange, but it works on a manner that you're utilizing through this corporation, this body that is a conglomerate of other sources, of other inputs, of other dictated means of why the price is the way it is, the item the way it is, the source of the item and where it comes from. Now, all of these factors can be stripped when you look at the simple exchange itself of one given one away for another to receive, and that is just the basic modes of an exchange of a currency that can do that. You just find a middle ground translation for one being able to offer something that is not of their own will to given of a common exchange in terms of allowing it. Now, peer-to-peer allows you to give not with an in-between, but as it is. So there is no currency in the middle. There is no fiat in the middle. There is no actual third party taking place to find that common ground. It's merely, this is it. You're getting pieces of it, and that exchange is taking place. You're connecting and you're not getting from anywhere else. It's like going to a building that's not a library, but it houses books. But you're able to go in and pick out the book you want, and you can go out with it. Now, on like the physical realm, when you're working with the data age, things can be copied, things can be replicated. Now, that's where blockchain technology comes in. If this was the case with the library, it would, this public library that is not essentially a public library, but it's more just a building with books. You're able to go in, and it's a free will action to be able to take the book and head out with it. But the system in place, such as blockchain, allows that to be self-maintained so that all the other books are aware that that book has been taken. So one cannot go back in and grab that book yet again. Now, if they're going in with this book to return it, all the others are going to recognize that this is that same book. Now, this metaphor is being applied more towards how the blockchain technology is understood, because that peer-to-peer network is allowing for one to not replicate a system. Now, with an info towards torrenting, one can replicate what they're sharing. So it is an exchange of data without sacrificing what you already have, while the blockchain allows you to send it, but without the replication part. This is more of an in-depth talk that would better understand what blockchain technology is, but I feel that is more better set for another video. In this time span, I'm looking to say that peer-to-peer is what we're going to find most of our solutions from. It's the decentralization to be able to connect with the farmers who are growing your food, to connect with the skillful people who are bringing about various means of offering their services, and the way you're receiving them is a direct connection to them. You're not finding a glossary or a collection of these people and picking and choosing, and it works on their systematic approach. This is an individual to individual connection. Where we're going, we do not want to take place on a system if we can become our own banks, if we can become our own authorities, if we can pretty much take back our own power and apply it to where we want to in life. This is like saying that we can become creators in terms of allowing ourselves to create the reality we're wishing to live in. We have the potential, and the way we approach that is really up to our individual free will. We don't need anyone to tell us otherwise. We don't need any other means to give us the push and direction or to tell us what the guidelines or the rules are. This is merely just allowing one to give up their power by acknowledging that the other is having power over them. So as more peer-to-peer solutions come into place, we are going to be able to become more decentralized. That is what the whole idea of Age of Aquarius is kind of leaning us towards. Currently, the systems in place and the authorities in place are ruled by the very Capricornish energy, which is currently Saturn and Pluto are in. Now, Pluto has been there since 2013, and I've mentioned this before, and it's going to be there until 2022. And in between that time period, we're going to allow for a Capricorn to come into place, and Capricorn is going to allow Saturn and then a passing of Jupiter to come through and conjunct. Now, this is going to be a big transformation, especially once it hits Pluto, as Pluto is all about transformations on a metaphysical scale. Even in the mythologies and how that is applied, we can perceive that as giving notion towards how that could be affected on the collective scale. And if we're dealing with a lot of authoritative systems going through transformation, that means that these long bearing cycles of hundreds of years are now coming to an end for something new to start. But it just doesn't end in one day and start the next. We're seeing it phase out as a new system is phased in. Now, the principles that build up that new phase are going to be very important for applying where we're going to take this. And the solutions that we're going to create to have this creator decentralized world are going to introduce themselves as we develop more in the present moment. And how each person becomes more empowered in themselves, they better understand themselves, and they allow themselves to act in their own free will. The more this takes place, the more you're having a system built by its own network alone. This is important because the network itself is not structured by something that is conglomerated just like Facebook is. This is a network built by your own connection. It's knowing someone, connecting with someone, and allowing that to form the connection. You're not allowing any third parties. You're not giving your power away. You're not allowing your information or what you do or who you are to take shape or form in something external to you. You maintain and allow that to be preserved in who you are, and you keep that integrity. These kinds of concepts are more on a philosophical sense, but it is important to see that because we're able to entertain these kinds of thoughts, we can allow our consciousness and awareness to be expanded of who we are and what we can work with. So as we introduce more peer-to-peer expectations, we're able to see more of a decentralized movement. And that is very important because it's going to take us into a world where it's not going to be something where we go to a store or we go to a company to get something. We go to a 3D printer, and we can allow this decentralized platform to allow us to create something that we need. And it's that peer-to-peer, that connection. I have this, you can have it too, because I share it with you, allows no one to have that central power. It allows it to go out into the wild. It lets it exist. It's an idea. It's a concept that cannot be killed. It's something that goes out there, and someone can do with it what they want. They can take the inspiration. They can build upon it. They can apply the same principles to create something entirely new. No differently than a crypto's bringing in the blockchain technology. The blockchain technology is no differently going through generational jumps in terms of being able to come better, to be improved, to take what has come beforehand and do something entirely new. This concept is seen very much in the artistic world of how artists have grown over time in their styles, the way that becomes popular, and what is more adapted by those who are willing to study art. We build off what has come before because it allows us to have a learning lesson without having to repeat the experiences in which the ones that came before us have done. And to have that out there shows the potential already done and manifested to see where we can take this and where we can go. And if we're ever growing species, if we're ever growing beings looking to expand and go beyond of what we're known, what we're aware of, we exist for the same reasons that everything else exists, to experience this growth, this experience of being able to go beyond of what we have. And to do that on a connection that allows for peer-to-peer is why we're going into an age that allows us to be decentralized, because we're seeing each other for who they are. We're seeing the humanity as a collective, as an individual and reflection of who we are, so that we ourselves can connect. So it is a very complicated topic for those who are trying to wrap their head around of why we're doing this and who's doing it, and there's very much a lot of different factors that come into play on who we're doing it with and the means of what is being done during these processes. But like I said, these are more topics that can go into other videos, as today is more of a social discussion on peer-to-peer and the importance of how it plays a role in our society and where we're going with it. And I can't emphasize enough the decentralization that this is going to introduce for us to essentially become empowered ourselves and no longer giving our power away to authoritative systems. Now that is going to be very much key to why peer-to-peer is going to be front and center, because it's not a single individual, corporate, company, or body taking charge and dictating what shall and what shouldn't be. And I don't think anyone can actually rule underneath that system without it being a give and take, where one has to give up and offer up their freedom in terms of working with the system that is in place rather than working with who they are on their individual scale. So that's something that could be entertained, and maybe you need to chew on it for a bit, but we can go into so many different topics now that we've introduced this peer-to-peer idea. So we're pretty much in it as we speak, and we can see some of it already existing out in the world, like I said, with torrenting. And as this gets introduced for many of the networks and the connections that we're becoming more open source, more decentralized, and more able to take back the reality that we decide to exist in. We no longer need a governance. We no longer need the ability to be able to be told what to do when we know we can do it ourselves. This is not only an evolution of the collective consciousness and how we connect on that scale, but this is introducing a new playing ground in where we're at a state where we can not only build the network, but choose and create what we are allowing that network to be made of. And when we ourselves are that network, the potential is endless, as we are coming from a factor that works with universe and tuned to universe, and the way that we connect and allow that to happen is no differently than an idea existing out there. Once it's out there and once it's existing, it cannot end. It is there to have a life of its own. And no differently, this opens up the gateways for these types of principles to carry forth. So with that all said, this is a great little intro to all this, and I want to go more in depth to it on the decentralized platforms and systems that are going to be coming into play due to the astrological phasing in and out of the old system with the new, as well as many of the rising technologies that are coming into play to introduce these factors on a more collective scale. And as this is being shown to come up and manifest, we're going to get a clearer idea of where this can be heading. Regardless, it's a wild west out there, and I think where we're going with this type of perspective is not only going to be needed, but it's going to be important because it allows us to maintain and retain our own power in this world that we take part in, while also taking part in connecting to something that is a larger, bigger whole. If we have the knowledge, we don't hold it back. We take it and we share it. That's essentially the core philosophies of peer-to-peer, and it's important that this self-education that is taking place right now through whatever it is I'm expressing is actually an example of why you are now able to empower yourself by understanding and working with the knowledge that you yourself can allow to take in and reflect and utilize in the own free will choices that you decide to navigate this reality with. So with that, I gotta remind you to stay true, and until next time, hope to talk to you again. Adios, peoples.